Okay, Polly, you ready to play a little bit of music?
No.
Now wait, this is the Nick Winter Show, and I do the entertaining, thank you. Let's go out with something really hot for these folks. A big hit out of '77. Ah, Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars, don't let them end. Ah, Star Wars, if they should bar wars, please let these Star Wars stay. And hey, how about that nutty Star Wars bar? Can you forget all the creatures in there? And hey, Darth Vader in that black and evil mask, did he scare you as much as he scared me? Ah, Star Wars, those near and far war, my seventh winner up here, Star Wars!
Hey there, Skullheads, I'm Snags.
And I'm Ol Silky.
Screaming into his microphone to the point of distortion.
Yes.
All right. So, before we kick off, I have no idea what this episode might be about. No clue.
Yeah, no.
But before we kick it off, just want to say go hit the snagsandsilky.com, hit the click pit, check out all the links, buy the t-shirts and all the merch. We are second only to the rock band Kiss and the movie franchise Star Wars when it comes to merchandising. We've got everything.
Mugs,
Go buy it.
decals, t-shirts.
Yeah. Oh,
hoodies.
yeah. Yeah, condoms,
three different styles. So go on the website and check them out. And there's usually playlists for each episode. Not this one, but we'll probably pimp the books and whatnot.
We've got these Snags and Silky branded heroin and injection needles.
Yes.
You got to check that out.
You too can die like a hero. Anyway, so let's get started. What I want to do is if you go back to 1958, Akira Kurosawa, he had a movie called Hidden Fortress. You had a samurai general is tasked with escorting a princess to an ally who will protect her. Along the way, the general meets his nemesis and a battle ensues. Also, two oddball characters argue, do their best to avoid trouble whilst bickering throughout their adventures. These were characters in this movie, Hidden Fortress. Amazing, but you can draw comparisons to like the samurai generals like Obi-Wan, the princess, obviously Princess Leia, and then the two characters, C-3PO, R2-D2, or Snags, you were making the same comparison to
Laurel and
Hardy. So obviously we're talking about Star Wars, 1977, epic galaxy ruled by tyrannical empire. The story focuses on a rebel alliance who aim to destroy the Empire's newest weapon, the Death Star. Princess Leia acquires stolen architectural plans of the Death Star. She's captured by Darth Vader. Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan set out with the help of rogue smuggler Han Solo and his Wookiee co-pilot Chewbacca. These are all characters that were in this 1977 sci-fi movie that just galvanized a generation. We were all...
I'm glad you summarized the movie because no one's seen it.
So, no one's seen it. This is the show you gotta run out and check.
Everybody. Yeah.
But you've got the three directors, Coppola, Spielberg, George Lucas. They were all coming out of the early 70s, and Coppola had The Godfather. So he hit pay dirt quick, and he had a lot of money, but his fellow NYU directors, trying to get off the ground, he helped them. And George Lucas did good with American Graffiti. Started, but he really wanted to do what became Star Wars. And what's amazing, if you look at sci-fi before Star Wars, you had like goofy. Who am I trying to think of? Flash Gordon, or just these spaceships and goofy stuff that clearly looked like a soundstage or a small set. Where once you had 2001: Space Odyssey, it changed everything, and I really think the only thing you compare 2001 to is Star Wars, because if you watch that first movie, it does not look like anything else from 77, and it has brought so many people. It's been such a huge part of so many people's lives, but you can't mention Star Wars without Star Trek, and that's a whole other episode. But anyway, we have two amazing Star Wars aficionados with us, Ken and Nick. So you guys want to come on and just talk about how Star Wars, it's really your show. You guys take it away.
Lay it down first.
I'll let you go first.
I'm honored to be thought of on that as far as an expert.
Yes, sir, man.
I do know some things. I don't know everything, but
no
happy
pressure.
to have a discussion.
No pressure. You only know what you know, but I mean,
we only have about 20 listeners, so
Yeah, I mean, break a leg.
Don't be too intimidated.
So where do you want us to start with? You're starting with the first movie.
Well,
we were thinking to go through them like in the order they were released, instead of the story arc order. Just start with episode 4, and
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna go movie by movie, but try to stick to like the bigger picture, because if we get too caught up in, there are 9 movies and there's so many different intricate things. But,
and I got a lot of bitching to do about the last couple, so we need to get to those.
I think we all do, to be honest with you.
So when did you first see Star Wars, Ken?
Well, I am old enough to see it because when I was about 6 years old, my parents brought me to a drive-in movie theater in my hometown of Syracuse, New York, and I remember seeing it in a station wagon when you had to tune in the AM net. It was actually on AM. It was kind of funny.
Was this the big clunky?
No, actually, it wasn't. You didn't have to hang it on the window. This was kind of a little bit after that, and you just tuned it in. They told you what station to tune it into,
nice.
And then everybody was tuned into the same frequency at that location. Mm-hmm. What's funny is, I guess, if you drove by in your car, like driving by, you could also catch the audio from it. If you were, heading on the way past the drive-in, you could see it. Maybe hear a little bit of the noise if you happen to tune it in, but it was quite the experience. The sound was horrible, but hey, I was 6 years old. What did I know?
Right. But as a 6-year-old, I saw it too in 77, I believe, because you see film footage of lines around movie theaters and people waiting forever and like all kinds of I remember my mom and I going to see Star Wars, and in my clouded memory, I remember seeing footage of like the trash compactor, the Death Star, Darth Vader. You saw little bits, and that was the preview, and so I knew I was going to see the trash compactor movie, and we went to this tiny. It showed 2 movies at this movie theater. We went that afternoon, like probably right when they opened. We went and we saw the movie, and I was immediately to this day, my first crush was Carrie Fisher. Star Wars was amazing. Carrie Fisher, let's just take a minute. Carrie Fisher,
R.I.P.
Rest in peace.
so damn sexy. God bless. Anyway,
You know, Harrison Ford was hitting that one when
yeah,
they were
I
filming
heard
it.
he was carving that up like Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah.
She was 19, so it was legal. But anyway, Star Wars.
Yeah, and he was
seeing it-
almost 30.
yeah, seeing it in a small theater like that, probably garbage sound, but a tiny theater. But I did see it, and then I remember for some reason, my mom went back to the theater later that night, and the line was ridiculous. There was
Yeah.
a line of people clear, and she had some friend there, and they're trying to get the kids in, and we ended up getting back in line to see it again, and we waited forever, and so I early, 6-7 years old, I saw that kind of chaos of just trying to see the movie, and then like Empire and Return of the Jedi, the same massive crowds trying to get in, and I do think that part of that summer blockbuster was created with Spielberg and Jaws, but again, all these guys were together,
Yeah.
There was
Snags?
a whole cycle of cinema that Star Wars ended. It ended one cycle and it began another. So when Easy Rider came out,
1971.
the turn of that decade, and they get killed at the end, it started this whole kind of era of nihilistic 70s cinema. It was dark. You had Taxi Driver. And a lot of these films had really nihilistic endings. If you watch a lot of these like 70s cop dramas and stuff, main character dies at the end very often, and that kind of started with Easy Rider, which was a huge hit at the time.
Would you put the Vietnam era on that?
Yeah. Well, you had all these people coming up through the 60s, these filmmakers. They were kind of independent from the studio system. The whole studio system of controlling the writing all the way down through the directing had broken down. And so there's this whole class of directors, which you were alluding to, and they were making these movies, and there was just this kind of nihilistic kind of vibe to them. And Star Wars ended that. The 70s were a rough fucking decade, and people were going through a lot with the gas crisis and inflation and all kinds of stuff. It wasn't perfect like things are now. It was a really difficult decade.
That 70s show taught me that.
Yeah.
And so they people, when they saw this movie and it was offering this sense of inspiration and hope, and it had a happy ending and everything, and people flocked to it, and that was the beginning. Jaws was the beginning of the summer blockbuster thing, but really Star Wars really kicked it off. I think every blockbuster movie was trying to be Star Wars after Star Wars.
It really is a definition of the 70s. If you think of the 70s, iconic 70s, you got like Star Wars, Kiss. I don't know. There's just
Star Wars and Kiss. That's all you need.
definite things that leap
They
out.
both had lunch boxes, so I mean,
It'd say the 70s,
Yeah.
But Ken, I think we interrupted the living hell out of you. Go ahead, man.
No, it's okay. That was great times back then. It was it's the space drama, it's what George Lucas said. It was the ultimate space soap opera is what it was meant to be.
Do you think it's a Western? Do you think it's a Western set in space, or more of a samurai?
He kind of did. I think he was trying to mix the two of them. Really, if you look at old interviews of him, is what he was going for there. But that movie was great. I mean, I remember watching it. I remember back then actually that most times the movies stayed in the movie theaters longer because they didn't, they were not going to try to get it to DVD like in a month or put it on digital or something. Like that movie made so much money because it stayed in the theaters for like 6 months or up to a year. You could keep going and seeing it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
That's why if you see some people say, "Oh yeah, I saw it back then 100 times," and they're like, "Really?" It's like, yeah, because it played for a year.
Yeah, you went and saw it, and
see it
what
like multiple times in a month and keep seeing it over and over. And back then it was probably only like $1 or $2 to see it.
Yeah.
So
I will chime in on that, Ken. In the early '90s, I worked at Tower Records in Atlanta, and movies would come out, and you would see it in the theater, and then for a brief time, it would be on VHS for $90.
Yeah.
And,
I remember
they
some
would
of those.
sell that crap.
That was ridiculous.
You would literally have a VHS tape on the shelf, $98, and it would sit there, right? Yeah. Until it went to like HBO or your at that time your cable channels. But if you wanted to own that, you had to drop some serious coin.
Yeah.
Laserdisc or beta or VHS. It was very expensive to have a movie collection.
I don't think we actually got our first VHS player in my household till at least probably 1983 or 84, and this is after all the Star Wars movies were already over. I mean, Return of the Jedi was 1983. We didn't have a player yet, and then they weren't, and as you said, how expensive they were. Like they would like play them on television and be like the movie of the week. You'd wait all year just to see Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back on television, like they used to run Wizard of Oz. It was
Wizard of Oz. Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
You're like, oh my God, it's coming on, because you didn't have, you couldn't record it, you couldn't anything. You just had to wait.
It was a seasonal. It was a seasonal thing. Like you would get It's a Wonderful Life around Christmas, and God damn it, you better get your ass in the house. It's coming on.
You had to. It was like the movie. It was the family event. It's like, such and such is coming on. Like we didn't have no recordings of nothing. We didn't have nothing.
Yeah, you got the honey.
You could have missed a single second. Commercial breaks. You running out to the kitchen, getting a drink.
Nick, did you know you're just going to be listening to a bunch of old men bitching here?
Yeah.
I'm
Nick,
an old man at heart.
Spot, go.
Yeah. Nick, tell us about when you first got hip to Star Wars. What happened?
It was 96, I believe. They brought back Empire Strikes Back to the theater again, and my uncle took me to see that movie. And of course, I was still under 10 years old. I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. I didn't know what the hell was going on, but then I see this Darth Vader mask. I'm like, this motherfucker looks cool. I want. Then fast forward to 2000 when Phantom Menace comes out. Another uncle of mine actually gave me the whole original trilogy on VHS, like that fancy box has all the cassettes in there. So I was getting hooked on that. I didn't even touched Phantom Menace yet. Mm-hmm. So I started with New Hope. Someone got me the book also, the actual novelization, and it was like probably that thin. It was, it looked like it was a few hundred pages at most. So I used to read that religiously, and to my knowledge, that was all I knew of Star Wars was A New Hope. Then I started watching Empire Strikes Back again. Then all this shit's coming back to me. I'm like, I remember seeing this scene, like the whole lightsaber duel between Luke and Vader. And then I got to watch Return of the Jedi. Took off from there. Then, of course, as we all know, the disappointment of the second trilogy came along, and I was just like,
before we get into that, Star Wars just really set it off. You had a young kid leaves the farm, gets to escape his reality and team up with Obi-Wan Kenobi, who knew his father, but there's this murky mystery, and then you got Han Solo, this rogue pirate almost, and they go and they blow up the Death Star. It's like, whoa, and then Empire which is, I think, to this day, my favorite
Same here.
of the
trilogy.
Yeah.
Empire takes off, and you've got this whole adventure. You already know all the characters, so they don't have to do that. And now you get the meat of the battle. It's just everything's going on, from Lando Calrissian to the Cloud City. That was really cool. All the different creatures and stuff. And Snags
Imperial
mentioned
walkers.
earlier.
Those are some badass
What?
looking.
Yeah.
Imperial
Those
walkers.
AT-ATs, yeah.
The AT-AT walkers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Snags mentioned earlier, there's his issue with some of the later movies was like it's like the Muppets, and I would argue.
Here's my issue with the later movies. You can only find out you're related to the evil person once. We don't need to keep fucking rehashing that. And oh no, she's the granddaughter of Palpatine, and that I just felt, since we're talking about it.
Yeah.
I just watched The Rise of Skywalker lately because it was the only one of the movies I hadn't seen. So I was like, I better get that out of the way before the podcast. And it was like they took the worst of all the Star Wars. At least Jar Jar wasn't in it. But, you know, every scene there's some new little Muppet creature, you know, wherever. They overdid it with the little Muppets. Like everywhere you go, there's some new little... And then,
well, I would argue that I think a lot of Star Wars fans want to see creatures. They want to see
sure
these and so that's kind of
it was cool in the original one where they go into the bar and you got all these, but I just felt like they overdid it with the Muppet thing, and then everybody's related to everybody else. It's just like the Deep South. It's like it's almost this ancestral thing. It's like Beverly Hillbillies. My summary of that last movie, and when Star Wars is at its worst, it's Flash Gordon plus the Muppets plus Beverly Hillbillies. And
well, I will say, let me weigh into. I don't want to piss you two off.
They're not going
to. You're fine. You're fine. I'm enjoying this.
I will say that things are cyclical, and so in life,
every now and then
it repeats itself.
Yeah,
that's what I want to say.
In each of our,
or the writers could just come up with some original ideas. The second,
God forbid, we're gonna blow up a circle 4 times. Anyway,
but anyways,
so back to
Empire Strikes Back was fucking awesome.
Empire was just such a solid, more of a character development. Luke Skywalker discovers that the hot chick he just wants to bang so bad is his sister.
That he already kissed. He already kissed.
Yes.
But
it was a
kiss.
It was not a. It wasn't a. I would say it was a G kiss.
They should add the banjo theme from Deliverance to the soundtrack.
Yeah,
that we know he kissed his sister.
And just maybe cut to the guy saying you got a purty mouth, and then back to Anyway, no, Empire was amazing.
Yeah, it was a good one.
I will share, when I first saw Empire, huge line. We missed the first the showing we had gone to see, and then we were right in to see the next one.
You had to stand in line for hours for those sequels. Yeah, I remember going to Phipps Plaza here in Atlanta, and you get there 3 hours before the movie, and you're just it'd be like a block long, just wrapping around the mall.
But when I did see Empire, that huge scene where Darth Vader tells Luke, "I'm your father," I thought I'm like fully in the movie, no distractions. I thought he's lying. That's Darth Vader. Don't believe him. Don't believe him, Luke.
You know what's funny about that?
And
it's a trick. It's a trick. Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom apparently already knew that was going to, either one of her friends from work or somebody had already told her what was coming. So she brings me. She already knew. So like here I am, like sitting there. And then the scene comes off, and he's like, "No, I'm your father," and I'm sitting there going, And it's
Yeah.
I didn't see her reaction, but she told me afterwards. She's like, "Yeah, I already knew." I'm like, "What?"
At least she didn't ruin
That's
it.
true. She didn't.
But I will say, Nick, you saw it probably in a smaller screen, but we saw these things as they came out in the theaters. And I will say, when Empire, like that was like heavy Shakespearean type plot points.
First time around, that was a badass reveal. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and
Because you weren't expecting it, too.
No, and you're
no
like
signs.
I mean, when did Empire come out? 82?
81.
80?
80.
Yeah.
Was it 80?
So I'm like 9 years old, and I'm like, holy, that's his dad. That's his sister. I mean, it was like huge moments where you're like learning, wow, and I was only child, so I didn't have any danger of kissing my sister, but those movies were
Let's keep bringing
in that
up.
moment. In that moment, they were amazing. And then we get to Return of the Jedi. And if either one of you want to chime in on Empire, jump in.
Anything else to say about Empire before we move on?
Yeah, the thing is, for me, it was just all the plot twists that were in there. Like, there's no sign, no chance of foreshadowing, no sign of it. So literally everything came out, and you didn't expect it. So everything was a surprise.
That whole
really.
scene that when Yoda is training Luke on Dagobah, that scene with him, he's like, "You won't need your lightsaber. You're just gonna go into that cave," and he ends up seeing Darth Vader, but then he cuts his head off and he sees himself in the head. Like for years, terrifying. I was sitting there trying to figure out what the hell that meant, because I saw it when I was, again, 9 or 10 years old. I'm like, what does that mean? Why is his face in the helmet? And then, later on, you see
that he's facing
that can become you as
fear.
the Emperor's new apprentice. So there you go.
Yeah.
He's going to fall. Right. He's going to go to the dark side. So,
the writing for that was just airtight. It was really good writing.
And Irving Kershner did the directing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the directing, a lot of times, as amazing as George's vision
he gave it over to him to direct it. Yeah.
When George weighed in, he somehow shit the bed every single time.
Well, when he wrote by himself for Phantom Menace, and what was the one? I thought Attack of the Clones was good, but what was the one after Attack of the Clones?
Revenge of the Sith. I love it. I love Revenge of the Sith. To tell you, that's like, I know like the prequels are number one. I liked it because of Darth Maul. I know a lot of people hate number one. I loved it because of Darth Maul. It was something different. Number two.
Well, I thought Darth Maul was like amazing, and then they take him out like 20 minutes, and you're like, what? Yeah. Darth Maul should have permeated the first three.
Maybe Disney Plus will do a Darth Maul series. You never know. There's hope.
Well,
right.
Darth Maul actually doesn't die. He's
they bring him back in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Clone Wars, the cartoon. He actually is rescued out of
his hatred keeps him alive from getting basically cut in half, and then then he goes into. I still don't know that even in the Clone Wars animated series, it doesn't show really. It shows him hiding out in a dark cave, and he got spider mechanical legs attached to him. Didn't show how he got from getting cut in half on Naboo all the way to where he was at.
The other side of the galaxy,
with
basically.
Mechanical legs on him with spider legs. And then, like later on, when he goes back to his home planet, Dathomir, the Night Sister, the Mother Talzin, is the one who gives him regular legs back with her magic. So there's another part of that.
That's quite the eventful life for Darth Maul there.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's all in the Clone Wars. That's all in the Clone Wars. But it's a good series. I don't think the Clone Wars movie had enough in it, and that's why they made the series.
Yeah, because there's so much backstory. And George Lucas is a genius by hiring Dave Filoni to bring him in to work on this animated series, because he hired the right guy. And that whole, I think, between Clone Wars and Rebels, those are the two series that I love. He did a later one called the Resistance, which was kind of like the sequels, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. Something was lacking there. Filoni did that series too, but he didn't. I don't think he put his best into that one. He put his best into the other two.
Right. The animation in all of those is gonna kind of make or break. There are people who just can't get past how thick.
Yeah, their beards or their hair looks like it's like clay. Yeah, it's like clay.
They're all two-dimensional. They're all two-dimensional, thick, and I hate. I'll go on record. I hate that animation. I love the hand drawn or you know how do you know how what is that video game in the mid 80s? Dragon Slayer.
Yeah. The one that cost like $2 to play back in the day.
Oh yeah. It was a bastard.
You didn't want to blow your money on that because then you died too fast.
No,
and you're like,
you would go to the arcade and just watch somebody play it and be like,
because I could sit there and play like 8 other games in the time it took to play one game of Dragon Slayer, and then you died because the dude would get torched by the dragon, and he would like all you'd see was his bones, and he'd be like in a pile.
I had a little cheat book for that game, and I actually went to the arcade once and like was kicking ass. And then bizarrely, like out of a movie, it had to be nine little kids out of nowhere all came and tried to sit on the chair with me. And their whole game was to fuck me up so that they could play it. and
I could imagine you sitting there. I could imagine your reaction too, by the way.
I was like in the zone. I owned it. I'd memorized all these little moves, and in each screen of Dragon Slayer, there's one escape, and you have to do. Sometimes it would go against what you thought would be the obvious choice. You had to go the other way, and you would get to the next screen. And these little bastard children I think to this day, it's why I have such a problem with younger children. That solidified that. Anyway, back to
Clone Wars.
We're on the Return of the
So now we know that about Brett. Let's get back to Star Wars. So
about Silky. So the Return of the Jedi, again, opening scene. You got Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, all in black. They're going to rescue Han Solo. Savage comes in, goes to Jabba the Hutt's little lair. Interact. I'm like, the movie opens up very similar to like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where as soon as the lights come down and the movie starts, you're like, oh shit, this is intense. Like there's no, where are we at? We're in the middle. We've missed. They've discussed, and Luke Skywalker. They go through and they work their way up to Jabba the Hutt, and you got that creature down below the floor. Just epic. A really good first half, and then they get to these damn Ewoks.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Silky, I thought you were going to bring up Carrie Fisher in her outfit on Jabba the Hutt.
Go ahead, Nick.
No, I thought you were going to bring that up. But
that's
definitely
fantastic
her best.
too.
That's the one good thing about that movie.
Well, I know there's a backstory on that. There is a backstory on that where they made Carrie Fisher lose weight. Rather kind of Hollywood weighing in. You are a main character in a very lucrative trilogy, and you will maintain. So it was kind of sexist or old Hollywood Weinstein kind of oppression, and she had to lose weight to keep and do that
Making
scene.
her
And
lose weight is not comparable to Weinstein style oppression. Just being clear.
Well, I mean, it just
Two
said,
totally
hey,
different
you have.
things. But anyways,
No, I would beg to differ that, just male oppression,
no.
but
Sexual assault and asking an actress to lose weight are two totally different things. But anyway,
they're both kind of intrusive.
well, it worked.
Let's
She
say.
looked hot in that outfit, so
Yeah, I thought. I mean, we all dug it,
Yeah.
but I've heard some backlash on that whole scene and stuff.
nah, it was a good scene. She looked good.
Yeah. But the damn Ewoks, and I don't know if you guys want to weigh in. I think the Ewoks were a compromise where I think George wanted a whole slew of Chewbacca's, and they couldn't afford.
Yeah, I think so, because that would have been like Kashyyyk, where he's from. So, and then obviously you saw that in, I believe that was
in Revenge of the Sith. Kashyyyk, you're talking about, right?
Yeah. But you see the rest of the planet of Kashyyyk later in the prequels, in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean that would have been cool too if you saw like a whole bunch of Wookiees coming instead of the little bears. But he was
little fucking teddy bears. Yeah. I mean, come on. That's where that was my first experience of Star Wars disappointment when the little fucking teddy bears show up.
Same here.
Yeah.
Swinging from the trees, fighting stormtroopers. Yeah.
Well, like Star Wars. It's interesting that they called it A New Hope, because even in my white trash Glen Burnie, Maryland, typical 70s abusive, drug riddled household. Not to get too deep on that. Star Wars, like I would literally lay in the back of the car as we would drive somewhere, and I would look through the back window at the sky and I fucked the hell out of the stars, like hoping that there would be an X-Wing fighter or some, like maybe Luke will come and get me the hell out of here.
I think they didn't name it A New Hope until later on. Originally it was just a Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Yeah, and later they named it A New Hope because they figured Luke was going to be the New Hope to fight with the rebellion.
I think they tacked it on because
they had to give it a title other than Star Wars, because they're you have the prequels. It can't just the fourth one can't be called Star Wars. It's like if Metallica recorded a few albums and then they just released an album called Metallica, that wouldn't work.
The Black Album. Anyway, no, so it just Star Wars really allowed you at a young age to have some form of escapism, some kind of, man, I would love to go fight Darth Vader and blow up the Death Star.
You got to admit that George was going for. I mean, this is truthfully, it's a kid's story. It's for kids. I mean, he wrote it for kids. I mean, when adults and obviously when I got to that point, I was 12 going on 13. So I was like, it was still really cool. And then you saw those Ewoks and you're like, okay, yeah, but this is like, he's still writing it for kids who he thinks they're like, oh, look, that's a cute teddy bear. Look, they're fighting the stormtroopers. And they could actually crush them with the, how they were doing with the big redwood. And they would crash the things. Yeah. Like, oh, hey, they can fight the Empire.
Yeah, those were kind of like Vietnam Green Beret traps and shit. Is how I, because I'd seen First Blood, and that was, I'm like, oh, but
when you get older, then you're like, oh man, this is like kind of sad because the adult into is starting to reason, and you're like, oh, I think that's what the whole thing is when you get older, Now that I'm in my 50s, and a lot of other fans that saw the original, they are disappointed in everything that didn't make them feel the way they did 40 years ago. Everything is like, oh, they overdid this.
Right.
Oh, they didn't do this right. Oh, they didn't do that right. They should have wrote this better. They should have wrote that better. It gets...
Well, but you want to go, hey,
if
bud,
you can do
hey,
a better
bud,
job, then go work for Disney or something and write a script,
Yeah. How's your short story going? No, I get it. But with the Ewoks, for me at 12, this was my story. Star Wars was my movie, my franchise. Empire was so cool, and then here's Return of the Jedi, and you're all in. You're both feet. You're like, this is amazing. And then here's Carrie Fisher in the woods. She fell off, or would she fall off one of those land speeder things?
Yeah.
And
yeah, so she gets knocked off, and she wakes up, and here's this, Wicket.
Yeah, Wicket.
I think it's Wicket, right? Wicket finds her, and you're like, oh, come on, don't make that some lovable little, it cheapened the intensity of the trilogy, where this was your movie, these were your characters, and then your little brother, now again, I was an only child, but you're like, don't make this movie for him, this is for me, and you wanted terror, you wanted another, I remember being terrified. Oh my God, Princess Leia's in trouble, and then here comes this little teddy bear, and you're like, what is this, the Care Bears? What the H?
Which movie?
It was the Care Bears before the Care Bears.
It was the Hair Bears, and my father's sitting next to me. He goes, "Ah, Christ," because we're having popcorn and soda, and he was in on, he'd seen the other two. Soon as and that may have fueled my disgruntlement as well. But as soon as you saw the Ewoks, my dad goes, "Jesus Christ," and so. Go ahead,
what movie was two-headed Ebersisk in Return of the Jedi? Do you remember the two-headed Ebersisk?
For the comedy relief kind of one?
Yeah, there's a character.
Yeah. I think that was
there's a character.
Was that in episode 1? Or
No. Let me look it up. Basically, there's just a little trivia that was based on Ebert and Siskel. That was his little riff on Ebert and Siskel, the
I thought it was
movie
Phantom
critics.
Menace on the pod racing.
That has to be Phantom Menace. That's Phantom
Is it?
Menace.
Okay.
It's like pod racing.
They were the announcers.
They're up in the booth calling
racing,
the pods are going around and around. Yeah.
So one last thing with Return of the Jedi. Overall, a great movie. They blow up the Death Star for the second time, which at that time was fine. I remember walking out of Return of the Jedi and my dad saying, well, that's it. And the horror at 13, like, oh my God.
That's it.
This like Star Wars had been my go-to from the age of 6 to 13, and it was over. And you're like, what the, and there were some really cool magazines. You'd go into 7-Eleven or go into the comic book store, and there were some great like Star Wars, and you'd get some back behind the scenes info and stuff, and you were able to kind of stay in the loop because this is before the internet, so you had no way to know. And then I would say late in 5th grade, somebody had some probably Return of the Jedi related, that it had all the photos from that movie on the cover. And that's when I personally first heard that George Lucas wanted to make 9 movies, and that he was going to wait for an undetermined amount of time to then have Han, Luke, and Leia all come back. And so that was the big promise. You're like, all right, those 3 actors can never die because we have to finish this trilogy. and so the weight was on, and that really weighed on your heart, your sentimental, what you cared about the most. And you're coming from me. I'm coming from having the sheets, the pillowcases, the
Yeah,
damn
I had the
window
sheets and the
curtains.
pillowcases.
Yeah, all the figures.
Yep.
I went one year as Chewbacca for Halloween. I mean, it was such a huge part of our lives. And then in the '90s, now okay, so in the '90s, I'm working at Tower Records, and Star Wars had gone into moratorium, which meant that the videotapes were no longer available. And I'm 18, 19. I'm like, what in the sweet, gentle baby Jesus is happening? Star Wars is
And then George wanted
deleted.
to re-release it.
I mean,
Right.
yes, but I did not know that was the strategy from a sales point. We pull all the movies off, and then we bring out the with the new added special effects, which we're all Star Wars fans. That's amazing. That's like exciting. Yeah. Let's enhance the lightsabers. Let's enhance the X-wing fighter scenes and stuff. What's funny is in the movie theater, you had like Star Wars purists who, in the movie theater, we're in there, we're watching the movie, the first one, Star Wars had come out. And then anytime, this is what upset me with Star Wars fans, anytime some scene that was clearly not from the original, you had some asshole go, fake, fake, fake. And I'm like, fake? Like the real Chewbacca? Like Chewbacca's okay, but this is fake. It was too much. You can't please these people.
Really can't.
Bill Burr, the comedian, says whenever one of these movies, Star Wars movies, comes out and people are lined up along Hollywood Boulevard, he likes to drive by and yell out, "Star Trek fucking sucks!" And they get pissed off for two reasons. One, you're yelling at them.
Don't explain it.
Sucks, and two, you got the wrong movie.
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it. Anyway, so we've kind of beat the hell out of the first three movies.
Right, let's get into the
Nick, I want you to weigh in because I don't think Nick has talked.
Yeah,
enough.
Nick, let's hear Nick's take on Phantom Menace.
I hated it. Aside from Darth Maul, I hated it. Darth Maul was the highlight of that movie, and that last
15 minutes in, and it becomes a Ben-Hur tribute.
Yeah.
And I remember.
Let's hear Nick's take on Phantom Menace.
I know. I gotta real quick.
I remember thinking,
if this damn movie, after all these years, here comes Phantom Menace. If this movie's about a kid wins a race, I am gonna be.
I love the pod
furious.
race, by the way. I had to interject that. It was badass.
It was badass, but it was very Ben-Hur. It was very Ben-Hur. Anyone who'd seen Ben-Hur was like, "Oh, this is Ben-Hur." Go ahead.
Let's hear Nick's take on Phantom Menace.
I will say this though, Anakin had the best pickup line of all time. He's like, "Are you an angel?"
Yeah.
No, but other than that, most of the movie was, and I was 6 years old when it came out, and most of the time I'm just sitting there. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, none of this makes sense at all. Then you bring in the whole Darth Maul thing, and it's like, okay, now we're getting something. But it's like, by that point, when he first duels Qui-Gon on Tatooine for that brief, what was that, 2 minutes maybe at most?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now it's getting something, but first off, it's too late in the movie. Two, it's too short. Yeah, you don't know what's coming after that. So but then if you see the first trilogy and then you see Phantom Menace, and of course I didn't realize this until I was older, till like a few years later when I was able to start to formulate everything. You see the development on how Anakin becomes Darth Vader, right? So with the whole duel in Theed Palace, it kind of like made the movie a little bit better. to be honest, it was still one of the worst movies in that entire series, my opinion. Like at that point, I was like, I didn't need to see that movie. I could have just stuck with the original trilogy.
I think someone
I,
needs to do
honestly, I
a
think
fan film where Jar Jar Binks is stabbed to death and then hacked up into pieces and then shoved into a trash bag and then thrown off a bridge. I think that would get a lot of hits on YouTube.
I just honestly, I think if in approaching Star Wars, I think you could start if you were going to watch them chronologically. I really think you could start with Episode 2 and never miss any plot points.
I liked Episode 2. I thought that was solid.
Yeah, I think you could start with Episode 2 and not miss anything. My problem with the prequels is intergalactic politics. We do not discuss politics on this show. Both of us just are strangled with the concept of politics.
Everybody else
like
discusses politics, so that's how we separate ourselves.
Yes,
we
don't need.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not a political. I don't discuss politics.
but to get like, here's your movie that you've been in love with since the age of 6, and we're going to introduce intergalactic politics and these fictional politicians, and expect you to have some concern, and and it's just too much. I think they really shot those prequels full of political scenes that just muddied the adventure,
Except Episode 2.
And I will say, now Snags does not have Disney Plus, so
I haven't seen this. I haven't seen the TV shows.
Yeah, these offshoot TV shows are just so good because they're assuming Star Wars universe, and they just put you smack dab down, and here we go, and it's going to be 10 hour long episodes, and just run it, and you can make your comparisons to Blade Runner or some of the Star Wars movies, and it's fine. They're fun to watch. The Obi-Wan Kenobi started out a little slow, but that got really good. Andor was amazing. For me, the first two seasons of Mandalorian were phenomenal. The third one lost me. I did watch it. I enjoyed it, but by the end, you're like, wow, that didn't really go anywhere for me. But what did you guys think of those?
So Obi-Wan Kenobi is one of my all-time favorite characters in the series.
Sure.
How deep it got between him and Vader / Anakin, that one hit for me just because it brought in a full circle on the development of their whole history. It gave a deeper perspective on it too, like how he cuts the mask open in half, and then you have the voice going back between Vader's voice and Anakin's actual voice, and it brings in all the emotions between the two characters, like the whole history, all the apologies. It's like, I'm sorry, Anakin. He's like, you didn't, it's not your fault. It's I destroyed Anakin, but that one was probably one of my favorite scenes outside of the movies.
Yeah, I liked it as well. The part at the end towards when Darth Vader is so obsessed with getting even with Obi-Wan to the point where the Emperor tells him, basically, you have to let it go. He goes, we have a mission here with the Empire, and your mind is somewhere else trying to get revenge on Obi-Wan. And he's like, you got to focus. So the Emperor tells him basically to stop looking for him and just go about, running the galaxy,
We got some evil shit to concentrate on here. You're distracted.
No, it was a good show. It was a good show. You said Andor. You also mentioned Andor, which is
So-
also leading up. They were working on a season 2 of Andor. I don't know how far they got with the writers' strike and the actors now. I know they were working on a season 2 leading up to what Rogue One movie was going to be, like leading right up to it. So,
that's Rogue One to me. Empire Strikes Back. I mean, Star Wars is always right there because it started everything. It was absolutely phenomenal. It changed everything. I think Star Wars changed filmmaking. It brought science fiction to a whole much more respectable status.
It definitely
You're not going
mainstreamed
to
it in a
have
way that no other film mainstream sci-fi.
no,
Sure.
no. I mean, you would not get Terminator with the budget Terminator had without Star Wars. So many amazing science fiction movies since 1977, but Empire was phenomenal. And then Rogue One to me, Star Wars, Empire, Rogue One is probably the greatest movie that franchise has put out for action, for cinematic, for the vision.
Yeah, that was a good one.
What needs to happen is a movie, an offshoot TV show, something with that samurai, the two characters in Rogue One. You got the blind guy and his Padawan, if you will, his
sidekick.
assistant, his sidekick. Phenomenal. They round this guy up. They're putting blindfolds on everyone. These people have been captured, and this samurai. I mean, it's the Star Wars universe, but you see him and you're like, oh, this is a nod to Akira Kurosawa's Samurai trilogy. This character goes, why are you blindfolding me? I'm blind. And it was so good. It was so funny. But it just, you're like, I need this guy in a trilogy by himself. Just kicking ass and taking down bad people or whatever in the Star Wars universe. What do you guys think of those characters?
Well, I'll tell you,
watch that,
yeah.
right?
You might actually see them leading up into the season 2 of Andor. You might actually see those two characters. I think his name is the character's name is Sharut. I'm trying to remember the actor's name, the Oriental, and he was just in the John Wick 4 movie too, also.
Yes.
So
yeah, he was.
Hey.
No. El Condor making an appearance. Buddy.
So yeah,
there he goes.
He's leaving.
You might actually see them, leading up to what Andor is doing with joining the rebellion. And I really liked Andor.
Was it Donnie Yen?
Yes,
it's got to be Donnie
Yen.
He's a martial arts superstar. Donnie Yen's. He was Ip Man. He was an Ip Man.
Ip Man, yeah. That was a
Donnie Yen
one.
is phenomenal. Yeah.
I really liked the Andor part because it showed you behind the scenes stuff of the Empire that you don't normally see, like the ISB, the almost like it's like the FBI of the FBI or the CIA versions of the Empire and all the infighting between the
well, the one guy's got it, but you don't want him to get it, and they whittle him down. They're like, dude, just
and then the girl wants she's like a young lieutenant or something, and she's trying to say, oh, I think the rebels are working on some kind of a mission, and we should pursue this. And then her higher ups are telling her, oh no, there's nothing going on there. And she's like, no, there's something going on there. And then she starts stepping on toes to try to, wasn't really trying to gain rank at that point. She just wanted to be right. And that because she's a woman, she was, being dismissed And they're like, oh, no, you don't have to pursue that. And she's like, well, I think the rebellion is doing something underneath our noses and we don't know it. And they were.
So they stole the plot from Fargo, where you have the the female cop whose boss keeps saying, you don't know what you're talking about. She solves the.
They had sex with the little
She's
fella.
vicious too. The actress that plays that part in Andor, she's vicious too.
Yeah. That was a. I would almost. I won't do it, Snags, but I would almost buy Disney Plus for you just so you could see those.
I'm working on
I'm
Columbo, Mannix, and Bosch right now. I got 3 TV shows.
Here's the Columbo. Here's the Columbo.
If I get to where I want to watch those, I'll remind you of that drunken promise you made.
Yes,
back on September 18th in 2023.
Yep. What did you guys think of the Solo?
I liked it.
I liked it a lot.
I want to weigh in here. A very Sergio Leone style delivery of like, I felt there were echoes of like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in there. I've really liked that. I like that movie a lot, and it sucks. Do either one of you know why it seemed like that movie was just panned by the fans?
The original, what was it? The original director
such a good movie.
Got fired halfway through from by Kathleen Kennedy from Lucasfilm. So she said, well, she didn't like what she saw. So she fired the guy right in the middle and then hired Ron Howard to finish the movie. So there's parts in that movie where you'll see certain, and then it tries to like splice something together in the story. And sometimes there's pieces missing. And it was like whatever the first director shot and then what Ron Howard shot. And then they just spliced it all together. And that's what you got. I can't remember the name of the first director.
So you combine those 2 directors and you get Sergio Leone, apparently, according to Silky.
Possibly.
Nick, what did you think of Solo's story, or of Solo, a Star Wars story?
I liked it, but parts of that movie I didn't agree with. I liked how it brought in Han Solo's background, because Han Solo is probably one of the greatest. It's not just a Star Wars character, but in terms of all movie films in general, he's one of the best movie characters of all time.
Or he's a galactic swashbuckler. He's just so devil may care. He's
appropriately cynical for reality. He's like one of the characters who understood reality is like this. You people are naive. I relate to those kind of people,
Yeah, I always felt he was a Douglas Fairbanks,
but more cynical.
Like
Charles Bukowski meets Douglas Fairbanks.
With a dash of Cary Grant.
Sure.
Let's just. Okay.
But I liked how it gave more background on Han Solo, and then you bring in Lando, how he gets the Millennium Falcon.
Donald Glover as Lando was brilliant casting, I thought.
That was really good. Yeah. I liked that casting a lot.
So we've kind of touched on everything but the last 3 movies.
We skipped over Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. But I've said I liked Attack of the Clones, and I do want to hear from Ken about Revenge of the Sith, because he said he really liked that one. But what I saw in the screenwriting credits was Phantom Menace. George Lucas writes it by himself. Attack of the Clones, he has a co-writer. To me, it was just a lot more solid and fleshed out. Then Revenge of the Sith, he's back to writing it himself, and it didn't stand up for me. But nobody's opinion is correct. We just all have our different opinions. So I want to hear from Kenneth on Revenge of the Sith and why he liked it. What was good? What was strengths of it?
I mean, I really liked it. Obviously, there's the scenes where you have, Obi-Wan wants to. He's like, well, he goes, I can't fight Anakin. He goes, he's my Padawan. He goes, and then they found out where Order 66 happened, and he's talking to Yoda, and he's like, I can't go fight Anakin and kill him. He goes, he's my like my brother. He goes, it's like, he showed him everything and taught him everything. And he goes, I'll go fight the Emperor. And he goes, you're not strong enough to fight the Emperor.
Hell no.
And he goes, so then he goes to Mustafar, and they have the whole fight, and the whole thing with the high ground, and he goes, I have the high ground. I've seen so many memes about, I have the high ground. Don't try coming at me. So that fight scene is epic between Obi-Wan and Anakin at their primes, fighting with all their strength of the Force that they have.
With the
and then even Yoda fighting the Emperor, and the Emperor is like kicking his butt. He's like, man. He goes, Yoda's like,
is that planet? That planet is like self-destruct.
Mustafar. So during the duel,
he hit that thing.
They hit the switch to hit the shield.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Everything starts collapsing. Everything starts melting with the from the, obviously that planet is hot as hell. Literally, it is hell.
Yeah, I think in those moments they're channeling like these Shakespearean tragedy things, and it's so powerful. But then in other moments in some of the movies, they just lose that intensity, and it's a shame. It's really a shame that the same writer, same director, sadly did not do all 9 movies, just to keep that.
If you think about it, though, you got 9 feature films, and how difficult it is to write and direct and produce and edit one good feature film, and you're trying to do 9, you're gonna have some ups and downs in the quality based on.
Well, everybody wants to weigh in, and maybe the writer or director is reading some of these fanzines or people weighing in. Oh, we want this. Maybe somebody thought, shit, we need a Jar Jar Binks. This is going to be
George
great.
might have.
And during the filming of it, they're thinking,
I think George Lucas is the only person on the planet that thought that. Yeah,
possibly. But I mean, my argument is in the making of that film, all the dailies each day, wrapping up, and the cast goes in to watch, and they're like, God damn, this is annoying. All of it.
You ever see the fan theory about Darth? About him being a Sith Lord.
Oh yeah, I've seen those so many times.
He was.
Yeah. And then there's a whole bunch of fan made
too. He became the senator from Naboo, and then nobody could be that stupid for that long, and he was playing everybody. And at the end, he was setting it up so the Emperor could take over, and he could be a Sith Lord. I'm like, are you kidding?
Yeah. If you look at Usual Suspects. And the character in Usual Suspects sets everyone up, very conniving, plays dumb, but all the time calculating and the big con. That would
20 years from now, when they release the enhanced version of Phantom Menace, that scene plot twist will be added in.
They did. I don't know if you guys remember this. They brought Phantom Menace to the theaters in 3D.
So. Yes.
In the theater years ago. And I went to see it because I was like, give this movie one more shot. And I sat there with my goofy ass 3D glasses on, and I was like, this is the worst movie ever made. Never mind Star Wars. It's terrible. It's worse than Plan 9 from Outer Space. I would rather sit through E.T. again.
I like E.T. I like E.T., but that's just me.
I said it.
I had issues to be what the aliens really look like. If you look at those mummies they found in
possibly
in Mexico, in the news. You know, they got the pictures of
It's
the
certainly
alien
possible.
bodies now. They look like ET. They got the.
Oh, is this a new
You
new
haven't been
discovery? New?
reading the. Google
No, I
Mexico
don't.
alien bodies. They presented alien
All
Mexican
right.
government basically unveiled these alien bodies that they had. But anyways, I
Wow.
digress.
Yes.
There are fan edits. I'm sure you guys know of Phantom Menace that are Jar Jar free, right? They've
Oh, I did not know
fans
that.
have basically taken that movie and
Wow.
edited all of Jar Jar out. So if you want your
That's
Jar Jar
phenomenal.
free, Google it. I'm sure you can find it.
Right. Well, I just want to just underline Rogue One and the takeaway from tonight's
Wait.
episode.
There's 3 movies we haven't talked about
Go
yet.
ahead.
Well, let's
No,
do
I
the.
know.
All right.
I know. I wanted to get Rogue One out of the way because that segues into Star Wars. If you see Rogue One, you can literally take that DVD or Blu-ray out of your player, put Star Wars on, and it is such an epic way to watch. If you watch Rogue One and then go into Star Wars, it's phenomenal. I think every single Star Wars fan who went to see Rogue One, at the very end when Darth Vader comes in and he's just absolutely furious, and you really, for the first time in the whole Star Wars epic, do they tap into the rage of the dark side, or the rage of Darth Vader.
Yeah, that's a hell of a scene with the
up
coming down the
at the end
hallway
of
and
Rogue
he's
One.
just choking everybody. He's slicing and dicing.
Yeah. He throws that dude up on the ceiling and then
It-
down to the floor. You're like,
It
okay,
also
okay, here we go. And that it really awakened the same joy that Star Wars gave me so many years before, and so Rogue One was phenomenal. And then you get into the last 3, which I'll let you guys discuss.
Let's hear from Ken and Nick about Force
Okay,
Awakens.
so I know this is, they're going forward, I believe 25, almost 30 years when you first see Rey. So as far as like where they are right now, like we're seeing Mandalorian and we're seeing Ahsoka and all the new series. These are like happening 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So now and then you fast forward another 25 years. I know everybody hates on Rey because they think it's a rehashing of Luke. I mean, well, at least Luke had his aunt and uncle to live with. Rey had nobody. She was stranded on that planet by herself.
She was literally a scavenger
as a little girl and had to like make her way for like 20 years without anybody's help. And other than her father was
a decent character development.
the son of Palpatine, and then she has no idea because she got hid away on Jakku. And so she's like
similar to Rogue One.
Yeah, Jyn
similar to Rogue One, where the
I like-
girls
hit it
I like
underground,
The Force
basically. Yeah.
Awakens. I thought that was a solid flick.
I like it too.
Nick, what
I like
are your
it.
thoughts? Yeah. Nick, what are your thoughts?
I had mixed emotions about it. Cinematic wise, I thought it was a good movie, but the fact that when Disney took over, and this is probably gonna be another topic in this podcast, when Disney took over, they basically blew up a lot of stuff that we grew up with. So I grew up reading a lot of the books, the comic books, with the Star Wars universe, the alternate universe, so to say. When Disney took over, they said, no, we're not going to use any of this. So for me, I went into the movie as a fan of Star Wars, but I knew I probably wasn't going to like the plot line because I knew stuff was going to get changed. So with the fact that with Kylo Ren, they, in the books, Luke actually named one of his sons Ben. Yeah. One of his sons was named Ben Skywalker. And then all of a sudden, you with Han and Leia naming their son Ben Solo, it's like I was like, wait, what connection do you? Obviously, Ben Kenobi's the reason why both of you came together, but to be honest, you had no reason to. They had no reason to change that. This is a minor detail that they changed that I didn't like that much.
I was talking to
Yeah,
But other than that,
when I was talking to
Go
Silky
ahead,
at
Ken.
one time at work, we were discussing this whole thing that when Disney took over and Kathleen Kennedy, now George Lucas sold his rights and got his $4 billion, and I think when she took over, she was George's right hand person for 30 plus years. In all the movies and every project he ever did, she was always right there. Then when he sold his rights, she took over, and I don't know whether it was straight her vision or if it was her and was it Bob Iger from Disney, what they chose to do, whether they they didn't want to pay certain authors, say like the expanded universe novels, you have Timothy Zahn, you have
Timothy
other,
Zahn.
continuing stories of Luke and the Jedi Academy and such. And then why would they change? They took bits and pieces, which is what Nick was saying, that if I believe Ben Solo or Kylo Ren, if they had, basically would have been Jason Solo in the books. He would have been the son that turned evil. That like they had twins. Han and Leia had twins in the novels, and in the movie they chose to just take one of them, and then they threw Rey in there, and then she was supposed to be the good person, which would have been the sister Jaina Solo, kind of. But they took bits and pieces and said, oh well, if we do it this way, maybe we won't have to pay any authors, then we won't be infringing on their copyrights because we're changing names and we're changing the storyline of novelization that were already written 25, 30 years ago. So
But you could have had that Shakespearean intensity of like The Godfather with Michael and Fredo, with transcend into the Star Wars thing with these two characters you're talking about. That would have been amazing.
And I know George is upset,
and it would have been on
he has no
level.
say now. He sold his rights, and now that Kathleen Kennedy is the CEO of Lucasfilm, she can basically do whatever she wants. And there's even
so we could have a Barbie crossover into the Star
totally.
Wars. Barbie goes up, and then we got like a Toy Story 5 set on Tatooine.
I would like to
and
see a
we
buddy
could do
picture with Deadpool and Han Solo. I think that would fucking rock. What I want to know though, because the whole expanded universe novels and stuff, I wasn't actually aware of all that. I remember when reading an article when the takeover happened, and they actually mentioned that in the article, and they said these are going to be considered non-canon works or whatever. And
right.
but George Lucas is actually upset about that because he was kind of invested in the storylines that were being played out in the novel.
Yeah, I think he would have liked to seen it gone, because anytime one of the authors would come to him, and like Timothy Zahn or some Greg Bear, there were several other writers that wrote these expanded universe novels, that they would come to him for approval. He would probably read the script and go, oh, okay, yeah, that looks good. That looks good. I like that story. So then he wanted to go. He just didn't want to be around. I guess his health was failing, and he wanted to spend more time with his family. So he decided to sell it off. He figured maybe Kathleen Kennedy would continue his works and keep going that way with it. And then as soon as she took over, I have a clip, and I'd have to show it to you, but it's an interview that both of them are giving, and George is talking and Kathleen is sitting right next to him. I don't know what year this was done. Maybe it's a few years ago. and he's basically saying that without telling it to her face, but he's talking to the interviewer that basically she's sitting right next to him, and he's basically calling her out, saying she's greedy. She thinks that she's she thinks she's doing right, but she's not doing right. And he's saying it to her face without saying it to her face, but he's telling it to the interviewer.
Yeah.
And it's a slam. And
I'll look that up on YouTube.
He does it so he does it so delicately, but he's just slamming her.
Now, he loves to show up at
it's
some
beautiful.
of the. I know he's showed up at several of the Mandalorian episodes, and he showed up at Ahsoka. And he loves Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And I'll tell you what, if they could dump her and put John and Dave in charge of Lucasfilm and just go for the next 10, 15 years, he would absolutely love that. But he knows there's no way you're getting rid of her. She's like the head. She would have to she'd probably have to kill somebody to get her out of there, you know?
Favreau comes to each project he does from a real love of the story.
Oh yeah, they're both fans. They're huge fans.
You know, it shows. Favreau will latch on to some really obscure character, and suddenly that character's in the next TV series. Yeah. And you're like, holy shit! People. The IG-88, which wasn't IG-88, but was that make of robot in IG-11. Those were phenomenal nods to. And then I believe you guys might know this better than I do, but there was the coffee maker or some sort of gadget that. Is in the Mandalorian or the Book of Boba
what
Fett.
The Beskar is. It's like a little.
Yeah, tell them.
It's like
this
a little ice cream. It's like an ice cream maker machine, and there's a character that's in. I think he's in Empire Strikes Back, and is some abstract character, and I just totally blanked the guy's name, but they actually have at some of the Star Wars Celebration Comic-Cons. They have guys dress up as this character, and he's running around with an ice cream maker. And it's like, when when the Empire, when Lando is telling the Bespin city to like evacuate, you see this guy come running. There's some guy with an orange suit running with looked like an ice cream maker machine that they found somewhere, and then they use the same exact prop in the Mandalorian series, and they can open the top and it opens, and all the Beskar armor pieces are like all inside of the carrier. And it was funny that they brought it all the way up to that point.
Snags, when this ice cream maker shows up on eBay, people pounce on it because they want to have this prop. It's terrifying that there are people worse than you and I would kiss.
This sounds like some weird story I would dream. I wake up and be like, dude, I had a dream. There was an obscure ice cream maker in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. And they have to, they're like, oh my God, this guy's got an unopened, so when you go back in time and you go back to 1972 and you bet thousands on the Miami Dolphins winning every single game and the Super Bowl, you also want to go and just buy a bunch of these damn ice cream makers and put them in the back.
So anything else to say about The Force Awakens before we move on to The Last Jedi?
No, I know a lot of fans don't like the fact that Rey has basically Jedi powers, and she's able to talk to droids. She's able to jump on the Millennium Falcon and just fire it up and then she can do, basically without training. So basically they're just going by her genes, which we find out later is Palpatine. But
Well, that would
a lot of
explain
fans,
it.
and I thought that she was actually a descendant of Obi-Wan.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought too.
Well, everybody was
Which is a
talking
whole
about
other deal
Luke or Obi.
because the only person that Obi-Wan was ever with was Satine Kryze, who was a Mandalorian in the Clone Wars series. But he early on in life, he had a relationship with her, I think, because they grew up together when he was a younger Jedi or something. But in this
when
is
he
an
was a
animated
Padawan,
series.
yeah.
But so I,
Well, it's
don't know what other. Yeah, go ahead.
it's funny to me. Well, it's funny to me what people get upset about. They're not pissed at the cyclical, repetitive storyline. They're upset that a female character suddenly had. I mean, let's take this story. Let's go somewhere. Let's do something. Let's go have an adventure and not continue to repeat what's been done before. This is a universe. There's an endless amount of stories that you could set into the Star Wars universe that would just be phenomenal because you have the freedom to have some floating
Ice cream
crazy
maker.
ass ice cream maker ninja ninja villain that does some crazy ass shit. And you're like, yeah, let's go. But we have to do the cyclical thing. But let's all get upset. Oh, wait a minute. Why is this character Asian? What? That was in movie the seventh or eighth movie.
Rose.
There was a female.
Yeah, she's like Vietnamese.
That Rose,
like people are like losing their minds because they put her in as Rose. Her name's Kelly Tran as the actress, and you know how much hate.
Yeah, and I thought she was great. And why is there a big okay? Where's your white hood, people?
Like, she shut down her Instagram and Facebook because so many fans would bash the hell out of her for playing that. She's just playing a role.
But why?
That's all she's doing, and they were bashing her.
Yeah, and those same people. Those same people would have been in that movie.
They're just
with
mad
the same
because Bill Burr drove by and yelled, "I hate Star Trek."
They weren't in it,
and they've never been the same.
It's just phenomenal to me.
Speaking of Bill Burr,
why
Bill Burr was in Mandalorian?
Go ahead.
Oh, that's awesome. See, now I have
Bill
a
Burr
reason.
was in Mandalorian, couple episodes.
Now I have a reason to watch Mandalorian.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's Breaking
good,
Bad too. A couple episodes. What he does is, if he likes a TV series, he tells his agent, "I want to be in that," and he tries to get himself cast.
And that's great.
So
Bill
what do
Burr
we think about The Last Jedi? Force Awakens was the last one I liked. These last two didn't do much for me, and the very last one I could rant about for a little bit.
But I was disappointed in the very last one as well.
Yeah.
But the one before that, Last Jedi, I'll be honest, I remember I went to the movies to see all these just because as a Star Wars fan, as a Star Wars loyalist. The entire for the most part, outside of Force Awakens, those last two really disappointed me.
Yeah, you want to see them in the theater because you've seen the other ones, and each one comes out. You're like, yeah, I want to go, and it just, I was not looking forward to the last one at all. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go.
That last one's the only one I
just
didn't see in the theater. I saw all the other ones in theaters, but
I did like the imagery in, I think it's movie 8, where the ships come down. And they're the backdraft, I guess, is pulling the sand off the earth, or the hard tack, if you will. It was like white sand coming up, and you had red streaks.
Yeah.
I thought that was like visually.
It was like salt. It was all made out of salt.
I thought that.
Yeah.
Salt. Yeah, that was wicked. That was a great shot. For me, coming from Star Wars, I think Ken can relate to this. This movie hits you at a very young age, captures your imagination. You grow up. You keep checking in. It keeps rearing its head. A new movie comes out or whatever, and you're following it, and it's hits on your heartstrings. Those just the fond memories of it, and then here comes Luke. Finally, in a movie you've been waiting all
and
this
now,
time
now
since
he's evil.
Return of the Jedi. And well, he shows up for half a second at the very end. You're like, son of a, and then you wait for the next one. And you're like, all right, this is gonna get good. And they kill Han Solo. Here's Luke sucking milk off some alien sea creature's tit.
Hey, it's blue milk.
You're like,
It
what
was blue
the
milk.
Christ?
Blue milk. Yep.
And, yeah. And they wrap that up. You're like, wait a minute. I've been waiting 30 fucking years to see Han and Leia and Luke kicking ass. And this is, it's a milk commercial. It upset
I can't
me.
imagine too if I'd have read all those novels, because then they're just hitting you with all this shit they just make up out of thin air.
Those Timothy Zahn novels are so good. There's a Han Solo trilogy that is just epic, and those should have been movies. Just if you crunch the numbers and you look at how well the novel does, let's make that into a movie.
Talking to you,
no,
Silky.
let's bring in some Ewoks. We're gonna bring in some Ewoks, and we're gonna have Barbie come in. And
I was talking to you, Silky, at work that I think that Filoni and Favreau, now they were talking about them possibly that Rey is going to come back, and they're it's supposed to take place another 10 or 15 years after the fact, but they could bring this together if they wanted to bring in the Wong series, which is like from the books. They're from another neighboring galaxy, so they would travel from another galaxy into this galaxy, and they frown upon technology. They think it's blasphemy to have like mechanical, things. They are also immune to the Force.
So they're galactic Amish? Is that what you're getting at?
Amish
they are.
Amish. Yeah.
So that
Jebediah from Planet
they're
Zircon.
very vicious creatures too. They look very similar to almost like Predators, kind of like from the Predator movie. Similar to that, not exactly like that, but close. And they're vicious warriors, and they're from another neighboring galaxy. And they're trying to come to that galaxy to take over. And then Han, Leia, Luke, and they're like fighting, with them for like many years. I think they were fighting with them for 3 or 4 years, fighting back and forth. Now they're immune to the Force, so they can't be mind tricked. They can't be force pushed. Obviously, you can fight them with a lightsaber. You can slice and dice them with a lightsaber, but there's only a few Jedi left, which is Luke and, but that'd be great if they somehow could finagle away an angle that they could do that storyline from the novels. So
utilize some of these novelizations. I think the future of this franchise realistically should be a jump to Netflix or Disney Plus. Obviously Disney Plus because they own it, but more of the series. And you could have 5 or 6 different crews filming all at the same time to just continue to bombard you with these little spotlights on specific characters. To if you connect them all together, you tell a much bigger story. That would be amazing.
The same thing with this Heir to the Empire about the Thrawn story. This is where we're at right now in the Ahsoka show. So this book, obviously I haven't done, it's a 3-book set, and I'm only reading the first one, but and I know that lasts for a while too, and I know that Dave Filoni has been given the rights to do a movie like in a couple years from now, basically like a culmination story of Mando, Ahsoka, all that, maybe Boba Fett helping, and just put it all together and defeat Thrawn. But you wouldn't see that, and they're going to put it in a movie. They're going to do like another season of Ahsoka, and then maybe give him that movie, and maybe it may be a 2-hour movie or 2.5-hour movie, just the culmination of trying to defeat Thrawn once and for good. So
Snags, Ahsoka is a character that I believe was in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, that's when she first started, was the Clone Wars
series. Yeah, and then she does show up in the live action Mandalorians to try to train this character that looks like Yoda, that features. They all called it Baby Yoda until they gave it a name later in the series. But Grogu, yeah. Ahsoka is a character from the cartoon that they have now given her own series, which I believe is up to episode 4.
5, actually. That's good. It's really good. Yeah,
5 up to 5 on Disney Plus. But it's a very good spotlight on just the culture of the Jedi and just everything. It echoes a lot of the Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It's because Ahsoka was Anakin's was given Anakin as his Padawan, because once Anakin got the rank of regular just Jedi, he wasn't a master. He was just I think he had passed the trials. So Obi-Wan, he wasn't really Obi-Wan's Padawan anymore. They fought together in the Clone Wars, but then they gave Anakin Ahsoka to train her and she's like supposed to be like a teenager, and she's like not a Twi'lek, she's a Togruta is her like what species she is. So she has like these talons on her head, and they're all striped. So,
do you think she breathes through that? Like that's how she breathes? Her lungs on her head?
No,
I don't think so. No,
it's almost like having horns. Basically, it's just the way they grow.
But it seems like a tissue type of material.
They made it look better on the TV show. They worked on it some more.
Yeah, I hate the look. I hate the whole. I just don't like. I like the story, but every time she's on the screen, I'm like, that whole headset.
It's the Muppets factor. I'm telling you, every now and then they get too far with the whole Muppets.
They just could have done so much better.
Quick question though. So the last 2 movies, that it just seems to kind of disintegrate. The very last movie to me was just a lot of rehashing of stuff that's been done before. I like the Rey character. I liked her in Force Awakens. I just think
I like her too. I like Daisy Ridley. I like the actress.
It's just,
she gets a lot of hate too.
I think
she deserved better writing. I think.
Yeah, I just don't understand the dislike of her. Like, who gives a shit what race she is or what? It's Star Wars. Well, this is not about. Wait a minute, there's not enough white people in this movie. Come on, man.
Yeah,
I said it.
That's stupid.
But anyway,
it's all about the character, and.
Or just that somebody had the balls to go, yeah, I don't like this character.
So I'm looking at the IMDb list of Star Wars feature films, and I don't know, is this still in development, or did they decide not to do it? It says Untitled Boba Fett film.
Book of Boba.
Book of Boba Fett.
That's a show, but
Plus.
I don't know if I didn't think they had a movie scheduled unless they're.
This
I
might
never
be
heard
this
of it.
might be
think that was-
outdated because it's got all the
Oh, yeah.
Skywalker series, and then it has the affiliated movies Rogue One, Solo, Untitled Boba Fett film. But I seem to remember hearing that they were planning
Yeah,
that and they decided not to do it, and then I guess they decided to do the series.
that became I would weigh in that had to have become the Book of Boba Fett, which was
Yeah,
a series
Yeah.
on
So
Disney
we covered all the films then, and
Yeah, the ninth movie. I think a lot of us went to see it because we'd seen the other eight. We'd been on that journey from 1977 all the way up. We went to see it. I think a lot of us were upset that Han Solo had
he
to
died
die.
he died in the eighth
and
movie.
then we go. Yeah, and then we go see movie 9, knowing that Carrie Fisher had passed away, and I remember being really upset that Laura Dern shows up in the movies with purple hair and was just so distracting. I don't hate Laura Dern, but the powerful thing about Star Wars all the way back is that you have no name actors in these things that just kind of lends to the suspension of belief. You're not watching this movie going,
Froze up.
"Oh, there's Woody Harrelson," like it's more intense that these actors are obscure versus
I wouldn't have
there's
minded
Laura
Laura
Dern with
Dern if
purple
they just
hair.
had a good script. If it wasn't, let's show as many Muppets as possible and rehash the Luke, I'm your father thing again, and 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 let's have everybody come back as a ghost every other scene to inspire these guys along. Every time somebody turned around, it's the ghost of Han Solo. It's the ghost of Luke. It's the ghost of. Come on, man!
Well,
We did the ghost thing with Obi-Wan
Adam
Kenobi
Driver
back in the day. We don't need to keep having the damn ghost.
I-
Where's
I think-
Casper?
I
Is
think Adam
Casper going to show
Driver-
up? That's yeah.
Casper the Friendly. Adam Driver's a good actor, but I don't think he was really utilized to his capacity as that character in those movies. I mean, he played the angry rich kid, or that's kind
He
of
was a kid
how
with a
I
temper
took
problem,
him.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I'm Darth Vader is my grandfather. I'm a badass, which you have like real life, the Murdoch family in South Carolina or North Carolina, rich kid that just goes on a killing spree. It's believable, but it just that ninth movie, I wanted so much more. And it's just a shame, but at least Disney Plus with their Spotlight shows, their series, kind of gives it some validity. Gives it some.
Well, I mean,
more
the
entertaining.
Disney.
Yeah, they do a lot of those.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, they do a lot of those shows, and they're like behind the scenes, and they do a behind the scenes for every show and movie, and there's really good stuff on there.
Yeah, I think it's a way to invite you as a Star Wars fan in to see a little bit more and feel kind of part of.
To say
it's very inclusive.
Like and you guys are talking positive about the Disney takeover, and I think that is a positive aspect, is when it's not all up to one guy anymore. And I'm tired. I'm not in the mood. I'm going to wait till special effects get better, or whatever. You've got this just swarm of people who can all be working on something. Then you're always going to have this content coming out. And they did do Rogue One, which was one of the best movies.
Yeah.
And they've done some things right, and apparently some of these TV series are good. So it's just a matter of I don't know. It's interesting because you've got all these different franchises out there, like James Bond and Star Trek and all that stuff. And there's always kind of ups and downs, but I've never seen the level of ups and downs that the Star Wars franchise has compared to other entertainment franchises.
I will say, since you brought that up, I think long term, I think Star Trek has a better track record. For quality.
It doesn't have the same ups and downs like Star Wars. Is probably the most successful. And I'm not just talking box office sales at this point, but the most successful science fiction movie in history as far as the impact it had. And then you have the Phantom Menace, which is, like you said, Plan 9 from outer space. And that range of ups and downs, you don't see that in Star Trek. They didn't do the most successful science fiction movie ever. Maybe the most successful science fiction TV series, but even that was after it was off the air and it became a cult thing. So
my critique of Star Trek would be that there's so many offshoots. Like, God bless.
They're doing the same thing Disney's doing with Star Wars. Just a new TV series every couple of years, and that too languished forever. Yeah. And then they bring back. And I remember going to the theater, and we'll probably do a Star Trek episode. But I remember going to the theater and seeing Star Wars the motion picture and being so fucking disappointed because that one. Star Trek the motion picture, they're trying to be 2001 with that one, which is a totally different genre.
Yeah,
and then Wrath of Khan comes.
But
was amazing. It's still not the same levels of ups and downs as Star Wars. I mean, that thing has just swung in quality. It's really interesting,
Mm-hmm. But I would, if I had to weigh in, I would enjoy Star Wars. I would put Star Wars first. I like Star Wars over Star Trek.
That's just you. But what do you cats think? Any kind of last thoughts or summaries of how you feel about this whole subject we've been rambling about tonight?
Go ahead, Nick.
We haven't heard from Nick in a while.
Nick's got the floor.
In terms of I enjoyed Star Wars a lot, but in terms of you're talking about the debate with the whole Star Trek thing.
No, well, it doesn't have to be about that. We're just kind of like final thoughts on Star Wars.
Your last
I want to give now's the time to get deep and philosophical if you want.
They call this a closing arguments on.
It's just the whole evolution
Perry
of it.
Mason.
When Phantom Menace first came out when I was a kid, and when I was a kid and I was into Star Wars a lot of people still bashed on us for being nerds, so to say, with the whole science fiction thing. And as more of the movies came out, and with especially the newer trilogy with Solo, with Rogue One, all of those as well, you could throw those into there. More people started to get into it. Now, like I talked to more people my age, everyone's like, yeah, I love Star Wars. And I was like, I bet you any amount of money back then, you guys didn't like this. You guys weren't Star Wars fans. You're just into everything else. But, the fan base has increased so much. And even at Disney, before Disney took over Star Wars, I remember going to, before Hollywood Studios was MGM Studios, that was one of the parks in Disney. They had that one Star Wars ride or simulator, whatever you call it. It wasn't even a ride, more of a simulator.
Star Tours.
Yeah, Star Tours. I remember going on that a lot. I remember going there.
Yep. I did a few times. Yep.
And I remember, as time went on, they kept adding more to there. Then once Disney took over, then it just took off completely. I still have yet to go to the new Star Wars park. So
I haven't either, and
I'd love to see that.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to go. I'm actually going in a few weeks, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, you got to let us know. At least me and Ken.
You'll see it at work.
I know their lights. If you want to go and build your own lightsaber in the little place, they're about $250. And you get to pick your own kyber crystal, whatever color you want, and whatnot. So they're about $250 each.
and it's funny because And all three of us are in the
Snags.
state of Florida. Unfortunately, Snags, I don't know if you're still in the state of Florida with us also.
I'm in Atlanta.
Okay.
No, he's in
But
Atlanta.
where we work, we see those lightsabers come in all the time. I mean, I see them all the time. I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm just waiting to go.
Yeah. Well, but I was gonna say, Snags, we'll have these people come through with these lightsabers, and we're looking for weapons, and these things come in, and they are,
So
very alarming when you see
for
them.
the listeners,
And,
these three cats work in airport security. So yeah. Well, you just basically said
if you want to say that. Yeah. Well, we like to be vague,
they keep
but
weapons
no,
out of restaurants.
it is
they're guarding
alarming.
restaurants.
We're glorified mall security.
Yeah. So anyways,
we're glorified Paul Blarts.
Silky, finish
we
your
sell
thought.
dental floss. Oh, just these they're like $250, and sometimes they'll come through, and I believe they let them go.
Well, what
but
is
it's
it?
always
How do these things work? Like, does it really have some kind of light that shines out of it, or is it just a full thing?
Yeah,
it's like a full thing with it, but you've got an X-ray, and it's alarming.
You basically see
like,
a tube
what the
coming
hell is
in,
that?
and then you have the
It looks
Right,
like
right.
a
but then you see like all
IED.
the little lights in there with the wires,
right?
And then you have like this giant battery at the bottom, with a button.
What are you gonna?
Right, like
you
a big
spend
button.
$250 on that. What are you gonna do with it? Just put it in your room.
You're gonna
Wave
take
it
it
around?
to the next movie and get it taken away.
You're gonna go have fights and stuff with your friends, or you can put it on the wall and hook it up in a way where you can flip if you get it in such a way. I know some people have them like displayed. You ever watch Big Bang Theory, right? When he'd come into his room and he'd flip the switch on. It was Howard, and he'd have two lightsabers over his bed. And they would like illuminate when he flipped the switch.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yep,
rig it up like that. If you,
the ultimate man-child, Howard Wolowitz.
I would say,
I was
Snags,
thinking
it's a way to keep women away from you.
It has a drying effect, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I guess
This has been.
What do you think?
This has been awesome.
What do you?
I love it when we have these panel discussions. We did a comics episode a month or so ago and had a couple people on, and just having not to have to listen to Silky the whole time is just awesome. To have some.
Yeah, there's times I don't talk.
Having some other people talk.
No, I like. Each of these we've touched on so much, and I always, with these shows, I like to think maybe somebody who checks in and it's on a topic they don't really know enough about, and maybe they listen to this whole episode and then go and buy a copy of Star Wars, or that's.
I do have one question
it's all
though.
about.
Obviously, with the remakes and everything, they redid a lot of the graphics with the original trilogy. I'm going to be honest; I was a huge fan of how when they brought the original trilogy onto DVD and they revamped a lot of the graphics. Me personally, I loved it. I just want to know what the three of you thought about it.
I loved it. When those first came out, you had a 2-disc version of each movie, and I have those, and so I can watch the theater version, which those are no longer around, and then you could watch the enhanced, and they're a lot of fun. What's sad is in there you actually had a human character that was Jabba the Hutt, that was cut out of the trilogy. He was not. I believe in just there's a scene of Han walking with him in Star Wars.
That was a deleted scene, I believe, originally. Yeah.
Yeah, deleted scene.
It was in Mos
the
Espa.
docking bay where he's got the Millennium Falcons parked. Yeah.
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 Yeah, on outside of Mos Eisley. Yeah.
Yeah, and he walks next to him.
So
it's a big
last thing with
big heavyweight dude. Yeah.
I was
heavy set guy.
Just to answer your question, Nick, I was just neutral at the time. I'm basically a media maniac. So if it has to do with music, movies, and books to a certain extent, depending on the genre of books, I'm always fascinated by it. But I'm not one of those guys that was in the theater yelling "fake." I don't even think I went back and saw it in the theater when I was.
Yeah. Fake, but they're good with the real Chewbacca.
It's just and Ken alluded to this earlier. People and I'm contradicting myself because I've been pretty critical of some of the stuff, but don't lose sleep over it. Have a rest of your life so that if someone fucks with Star Wars, you're not depressed for the whole year. You know what I mean? Go outside and throw a frisbee or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's entertaining, and it's upsetting when somebody messes with what you like. But again, it's entertaining. These guys that were so into the Lord of the Rings trilogy and some of that stuff, and they got a little vocal when something didn't go their way.
Although,
like,
if
dude,
you'd
it's
have
just
listened
fun
to
to watch.
you and me in the '80s bitching about Kiss, that's probably what we sounded like.
See, and you keep bringing
back on and get Ace and Peter back in the band, man. Anyways.
This is our 32nd
episode,
episode, and
every
somehow we managed to mention this.
It's a sickness.
That one over there. But anyway, so the last thing I wanted you guys to weigh in on, who shot first, Han. Or
I don't know. I get conflicting stories.
Or
when they redid the remake, they made it look like what was it, Greedo? Greedo shot. And that little scene almost looked like so the special effects, even though he worked and like redid it, it looked terrible actually.
Yes, it did, and I will say, to me, you got to go with your gut. In the original version, Han blows this alien away. He's green. He's freaky looking, and you move on. And I think in hindsight, well, let's make Han look a little less
like an ass, like a
ruthless, or whatever. So that's my take on it. But I know that's a big debate.
I didn't really ever care about it.
Yeah,
I know people had.
Yeah, no, I'm proud. I worked in the ice cream maker and the Greedo.
Well, the grassy
debate,
knoll. Don't forget the grassy knoll.
Show.
Yeah.
Yes. Who shot first? Somebody from the grassy knoll or Lee? Anyway, I think that's good. You ready to
Nick
wrap it up? Everybody good?
Gave his closing thoughts. Ken, do you have anything to cap it off with?
All I say is that I'm never really disappointed in anything that comes out because it is truly entertaining to me. It brings me back to when I was 6-7 years old, and now I'm 53. So, I mean, yeah, there might be some conflicting things here and there on certain episodes that maybe didn't go along with the books, but they try their best to make it genuine. And I mean, I know that they're changing some of the, the sequels characters, but I always enjoy everything I ever see. I'm never really disappointed in anything. I'm just like a Star Wars fan at heart. I always will be. And I really like the new shows that are coming out that Filoni and Favreau do. So I think they're the ones should take over and keep going for like the next 15, 20 years. and just keep going through all the expanded universe stories.
It's such a fun place to go, that universe. And like you said, Ken, it's just fun. It's entertaining. Let me enjoy it. Don't shit all over it. Like, life's hard enough. I get it. But like, the bigger issue is you can't please everyone. And this is a high profile story. There's anytime a new Star Wars product comes out, everyone's going to weigh in and go, "Oh, this guy, I don't like this," and that sucks because you just want to enjoy it. Can I just enjoy it? I get it.
I think that's a good closing sentiment. I appreciate you guys both coming on. This has been fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, maybe there you go.
There's the helmet.
There it is.
So for our listeners, Ken just put on a
Boba Fett
helmet.
Yeah.
His Boba Fett helmet.
So,
yeah. And we'll a parting message to everyone listening.
There you go.
May the force be with you.
May the force be with you.
That's a Star Wars version of peace out.
Live long and prosper. Oh, wait a minute.
All right. You guys stay on. We're going to say goodbye to the listeners, but we got some post-show wrap-up with you cats, and got some good episodes coming out. So all of our massive, bigger than Joe Rogan audience, millions of listeners.
That's right. Go on the website, buy some merch, buy a mug.
Arbor Day,
Father's Day is coming
Flag
up in
Day,
June next year.
President's
Christmas,
Day, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
The Millennium, all kinds of holidays.
Yeah, you got to
go on and buy a damn T-shirt.
Yeah. All right. Peace out.